consider your your project proposal and help you, give you feedback to make it the tightest project proposal it can be. You'll already have received an email, I think, from Jane telling you the dates by which you have to submit your application for registration. If you're a full-time student, it's 15th of November. If you're a part-time student, it's 10th of January. I hope none of this is news for you. But that's the first thing you'll be get cracking with right away with your team. And there's lots of support for getting your application for registration absolutely right. I'm going to flip on a slide. No, I lost my, I'm going to go back a slide. So there's loads of guidance here in the Research Degrees Handbook and Regulations. There's very specific feedback in a document on the hub. Guidance for filling out that form, and Renewal offers you a registration study day. So please join us Thursday the 28th of October when we're specifically looking at how to get you through registration happily. That's everything I'm going to say about registration. Any immediate questions, like Elizabeth, please stick them in the chat. Otherwise, I am going to move on to the stage that comes after registration, and this is ethics approval. So ethics involves agreeing a plan with the university to protect anybody involved in your research from any possible harm. So the most obvious candidates for potential harm and needing protection are children and animals, but your research, anybody who's been interviewed as part of your research also needs ethical protection, and you need to think about how you design your project ethically to protect anyone who's involved in it. So good question, Edmund, about PhDs by published work. Do you know what? It's been answered already. I'm going to keep going. The stages that I'm describing are probably for everybody in the room, but if you're doing PhD by published work, they're not. So, but I would urge you, Edmund, to stick around with Renewal sessions. For instance, there's a session and part of the registration study day where we look at referencing and what software is available for referencing, and that will be applicable to anybody writing a thesis. So I know you only have to write fewer words, but do join us. Don't step away because the form doesn't need filling. So on the point of ethics, practically what does it involve? There is a form you have to fill in, a post-registration ethics form, and this will ask you questions about what your research involves, and you have to satisfy the university that you're taking all appropriate ethical guidance to ensure that you're anything that you're undertaking as part of your project is thought through in terms of protecting those involved. So again, this paperwork will go to your college committee and then to the Research Ethics Committee of the university. So the Research Ethics Committee of the university looks at ethical forms for anybody doing research, from prof readers. Anybody undertaking a research project has to go through the same set of committees that you'll go through as a PhD student. So the big thing to say in terms of when you should do it, you have to get ethics clearance before you do your research piece. So don't start interviewing anybody about your research until you've got ethical clearance. And you will be asked in your annual report about the ethics status of your project, so you have a reminder at that point, but please bear in mind, no research to be done without ethical clearance first, please. And again, there is support. So we're back to the handbook. There's a whole annex there that's the UAL Code of Practice on Research Ethics. Again, there's specific guidance notes on the Postgraduate Research Hub. And there's also a specific bit of the Renewal bibliography that deals with research ethics. I'm just going to stick a link to that here in the chat if you want to consult a literature on research ethics. And also there is a recording online. Paul Lowe has recorded a session on research ethics specifically for PhD students. And the very first session in Renewal's Core Research Concerns series, which is on the 25th of November, Paul will be with us to discuss anything in that recording. And we're also joined by Tim Stevens, who's another ethics whiz at the university. So please, I encourage you to watch the recording and join us from 10 to 11:30 on the 25th of November to discuss the rest. Bring any questions you have about research ethics to that forum. I'm just going to scan the questions. Okay. My colleagues are on the Q&A. I'm going to move on to the next stage, which is confirmation. So, confirmation sounds vaguely Catholic. It absolutely isn't. It's the stage of your PhD it's a stage of your research where you confirm either as a PhD or as MPhil. So at the moment, you're registered at university as an MPhil/D student, and at the point of confirmation, your trajectory onwards is confirmed as following an MPhil route or a PhD route. So in some other universities, this same stage is called upgrade. So at some universities, you all enroll as MPhil and upgrade to PhD if that's where you're headed. Some universities call it a transfer process. At UAL, it's called confirmation, and it's about confirming your project as PhD shaped, in which case you're making an original contribution to a field, or it's confirmed as MPhil shaped, which involves fewer words, there's less time to complete it, and it involves a critical understanding of a field rather than an original contribution to a field. So what does confirmation as a stage in your research journey practically involve? It involves producing 10,000 words and a practice-based submission if you're doing a practice-based PhD. It involves a report by your supervisory team saying how you're getting on. It involves a panel meeting in which you discuss those 10,000 words and practice submission, if you have one, with an external assessor. And that is somebody within the university, within UAL, could be any college, any institute. And they are discussing with you your research. They are not examining you. It is not a mini Viva. They are there as suddenly an extra critical friend in your research process. And it also involves another part of your confirmation process is your renewal presentation. You will come into a classroom like this one and share your research with your peers and have a discussion about it. That whole panoply of things is your confirmation process. It will take place in your second year if you're full-time and your third year if you're part-time. And one bonus of doing the confirmation is that year you do not have to do an annual report. So if you're doing your confirmation, you don't have an annual report in that year. Confirmation takes does the job of your annual report. So once again, there is loads of detail about this in the handbook, absolute chapter and verse in the handbook. There are guidance notes on the hub, and there's a dedicated renewal study day looking at confirmation. That happens on the 13th of January this year, and I would urge all of you as first years to come along just to have a look at what's coming up for you. Doesn't mean you can't attend again next year. You'll get different things out of it at a different stage. But interestingly, I think possibly the best taster of the confirmation process that you'll get is by coming along to all those going through it this year and watch their confirmation presentations. Come along to the Block 2 renewal, second week of February, and you will see everybody at the university that's going through the confirmation talk about their research and beg questions from you as peers. So if you come along to that and take part, you'll have the best taster you can get really about what confirmation involves. Okay, I'm going to jump on to the next stage, which is writing up and submission. So at UAL, we talk about a PhD thesis as being both the written document and the practice-based component if you have one. So that's just a heads up. Anybody who's talking about a UAL thesis who's practice-based, the practice is part of your thesis. It's not separate to your thesis, it is part of your thesis. And the written submission has a maximum word limit of 100,000 words. That's whether you're practice-based or not. The maximum is 100,000 words. What differs for practice-based versus those without a practice element is the minimum number of words. So if you're text-based only, the minimum number of words to submit is 60,000. And if you're practice-based, you can submit a minimum of 30,000. Now, a dear colleague who retired recently, William Rabin, who had a lot of very successful practice-based students, always used to urge his students to aim for the minimum. So he would tell his practice-based students, aim for 30,000, see if you can submit practice and just 30,000 words. And I'm going to extrapolate that advice to those who are text only as well. I genuinely would aim to submit the minimum number of words. What's the most bijou encapsulation of your project that you can articulate? Mostly you'll then go over, but if you start aiming for 100,000, you'll produce more. So that's my tip about writing up, is aim for the minimum number of words that you need to produce. Now, writing up as such is an optional stage within your PhD. You can apply to UAL once to go into the writing up stage once you have a first full version of your thesis. So once you have your written document and a practice component that you think is your first cut of a complete version, then you can apply for writing up status. And that writing up status can last for a maximum of 1 year, and then you have to submit after that year is up. It brings reduced fees, and your fees are paid in term installments. So you could go into writing up and then just pay 1 month of reduced fees and submit, and you're done. Or you could take 3 terms, or you needn't go into writing up at all. You it's an optional stage. You don't have to go through that process, but it does bring reduced fees if you want to go through it. That's all I'm going to say about writing up. I'm going to say a couple of words about submission. And these are tiny things, but I think it plays into the registration stage that you're all at. One is just about typographic and grammatical accuracy and use of academic conventions, which, for example, when you're citing the work of others, footnotes, endnotes, whatever, however you're formatting grammatically or your written component. I just want to flag that your examiners, right at the end stage, could send you back to your desk just to sort out those tiny errors. So I honestly believe that it's worth setting up good practices now, and the registration stage will help, the registration study day will help you with this. If you really get up to speed very quickly with the small things, it can save you time right at the end when you're desperate to finish and get your MPhil or PhD done and dusted. Do put some time into the detail, because it can be super frustrating to get sent back to make adjustments just on that basis. The other tiny thing that could be significant that I would say right now at the outset, which is about appointing your examiners. You have to apply to the university committee to appoint your examiners. They will be approved by a team, and you have to apply to get your examination team agreed before you submit your thesis. So it'll slow you down if you haven't applied to get your team, your examination team agreed before you submit. Now, I know this seems like miles away and it doesn't matter if you forget, but it will slow you down if you do forget. So please keep in mind, have a think about getting that paperwork done. I'm going to have a look at the question from Edmund about, yes, so we have RefWorks is the recommended software for bibliographic references. We also endorse Zotero, which is free access software, not proprietorial. And there's a load of tips on that in the registration study day. So come along, please, to hear, ask questions as well as ask about this. Just quickly checking. There is a council, there's an urging to use Harvard style and cite them right, but it's not compulsory. You can go your own way. But you know what, I'm not going to answer any more questions about referencing, because that will be in the registration study day. I'm just going to move on to Viva and corrections, which I've touched on a bit because I've explained about applying your Viva team for your Viva team to be agreed. Let me tell you how your Viva will work. So your Viva is your moment to defend verbally the contribution to knowledge or the review of the critical field that your research has produced. And you will do this in conversation with 2 examiners. One will be internal to UAL, so some member of the UAL staff will be your internal examiner for you in your Viva for your research. And then there's an external member who can be anyone around the world who is best qualified to assess the value of your contribution. And also in the Viva situation with you will be a chair, so a UAL member who's totally neutral, who hasn't read your PhD, hasn't seen your practice, but is there to make sure that it is fair. So they are there as your neutral ally in the process. And if you want, you can have your director of studies or one of your other supervisors in the room with you. You can't have eye contact with them. And obviously, if it's done online, you won't see them anyway. Their camera will be off, but they're there to sort of take notes in parallel with you. So if you have any corrections to make, you can discuss those with your nominated representative afterwards. Quick note to say that your Viva is organised by the student team. I'm going to introduce you to members of the student team met them in the chat already, but they will organise your Viva for you. It's super important that you don't start approaching your examiners, because they shouldn't have contact with you. They need to be totally impartial, so you should not be emailing your examiners, please, or potential examiners. And I can take questions about that if you want to talk to me about. People often seem anxious about who might be examining their PhD, and we can certainly talk about that in the Q&A. So what are the outcomes of your Viva? Most students, UAL PhD students, get either 2 months or 6 months to carry out corrections. And as I say, they could be as simple as typographic, or it could be adding a paragraph that your examiners feel mark something that you omitted in your document. And some pass without any corrections whatsoever, so that's the ideal. You walk away with your doctorate. And some are asked to take a year out to resubmit, so a more substantial revision than a 2 month or 6 month adjustment, a resubmission. And a tiny, tiny number, and literally none in my personal experience, do fail or are awarded an MPhil when they were hoping for a PhD. But I'm happy to take questions about that, but please don't worry about it. You have a supervisory team whose job it is to make sure you emerge as a doctor from the process of the research that you've gone through. So just to flag, there's a renewal completion study day to support you on the 28th of April. It might seem end game, but as ever, please feel welcome to join in the room. I'm going to leave that question to my colleagues. I just want to flag some informal stages that you might get feedback from a peer or a specialist at some point in your research degree, and that might be the most important stage for your research. So try and be open to that. Try and share your research and learn from the feedback you give. You might also have training or conference participation or travel funded by the university through the Research Student Support Fund, and that could be crucial. So pursue all the support that you can get, because that could be what proves critical to your research. I'm going to flip now to key stages, and this I promise will be quick, and then I'll throw open the floor to proper Q&A. So the key relationship in your degree is going to be with members of your supervisory team. So that's your director of study and co-supervisors. Now the handbook, it has 3 whole chapters on supervision, including an annex that gives you a code of practice for supervisors and research students. Do skim those particular chapters before you meet your team. It's just worthwhile you being up to speed on what the roles and responsibilities are. People always ask me, how many times should I be seeing my supervisors? The rule of thumb is 10 meetings annually if you're full-time and 5 meetings annually if you're part-time. But just remember, I mean, you probably know this, but remember your supervisors are advisors. They're your mentors and they're not your teachers. So this research degree is your project, and you will lead it. You will go to them with your questions, and you, particularly if you read the handbook, you might end up knowing your handbook better than your supervisors. You lead your project and they will give you feedback. So yeah, enjoy the autonomy that a research degree gives you, and enjoy the expert advice that your team will offer you. So beyond your supervisory team, who are your key relationships with? The first thing is super important. Everybody in this room now potentially offers you a key relationship, and you should get to meet each other online tomorrow, via your college, or on Thursday. And you'll also have key relationships with other UAL students who are further along with their research degrees. You'll meet them, you'll meet 2 of them online tomorrow. You'll meet others through your supervisors in your colleges. You'll meet more through the confirmation presentations that I've already mentioned. Please, please network yourselves, not as some cynical undertaking, but in order to socialize your research. Your research will benefit from the input of your peers, from other students and maybe students at other universities, but we've got more than 250 students at the university doing a research degree with us currently, and you will find your team who will make sure your project is stronger for their input. You also have college-based student representatives. They can help you. And you might find what you share with students is surprising. So with your fellow students, you might be sharing an overlapping research concern. You might just share a methodology. You might share a local park or a hometown or a favorite book or a blogger. It doesn't matter what you share. Find your team that will keep you socialized around your research. I can't say that strongly enough. It probably seems obvious, and it's hard to say it when we're not embodied in person. But I hope that by being online, renewal means you can dip in at any time. So don't hesitate to take the virtual relationships that you make on via renewal into person, and arrange to meet up with those that you find most stimulating to your research. Just a flag, a very quick thing, you can always direct message people whilst in a Collaborate room like this one. So anybody that says something interesting, or you recognize a name, or whatever it is, you can direct message them and hook up with them and arrange to meet in person. So make the virtual the starting point for things in person. Right, quick. Two links here. Portfolio Arts at UC is where you can upload your research identity. It's an opportunity to put your project online so people can learn more about you. Second link there is for the postgraduate community. They serve MA students as well as our PhD community, and there's a lot of social possibilities there, or you can find audiences for your research. There's special interest groups. You might have seen these links elsewhere, but do use them to keep your peer network strong. Right, the next support for your another key relationship is with the postgraduate research team. You met a couple of them already in the chat. I'm just going to ask Jane, David, Emily, I think we might even have Dan with us. Anybody, fellow members of the postgraduate research team, please jump on mic if you don't mind, just to say hello. Dan, thanks for being here too. Anybody brave enough to throw on? I mean, we don't have to. I mean, maybe we're tight for time. We shouldn't. But let me tell you about the postgraduate research team. There is a member. Let me start here. If UAL has partner colleges, so if you are a member, if you're based at Bournemouth or Norwich or University of Creative Arts, you will have your own point of contact. But if you're based at one of UAL's colleges, you will have a dedicated member of the postgraduate research team who is there to get all your paperwork through all the college committees and up to the university committees. And you can ask a question of a member of the postgraduate research team at any time via this email. Jane, thank you for throwing on your camera. Jane is the manager of the whole team. So Jane, if you want to say a quick hello, I would welcome that.
Yes, just want to say hello, welcome. We're very excited to have you all joining us at UAL today. I lead the postgraduate research team, and we will be managing your PGR journey all the way through to award and then alumni. And do not feel afraid at all to ask us any questions or approach us at any time. We are here to support you throughout your journey. Thank you.
Fantastic, thanks Jane. So anything that isn't in the handbook, if you're not clear what the handbook is exactly saying, pertinent to your experience, and your supervisory team isn't sure, just email his team the answer. We all consult them at many points about particularities, so don't hesitate. Right, next. Who else?
Shall I just jump on, Lucy?
Yeah, please do.
Hi, so I'm Emily. Some of you may have already been in correspondence with me for enrolment. I oversee admissions, enrolment, tuition fees, visa compliance for research students, and I also look after LCC students. So yeah, feel free to contact me if you've got questions about any of those things. You can just use the standard research degrees email and it will come through to me. So look forward to speaking to many of you soon.
I'm loving the love you're getting, Emily. One of the lovely things about working at UAL is having such strong colleagues, so I am super fond of everybody I'm meeting right now. David, Dan, do you want to take the mic? There's no pressure to flip your camera on, but you're more than welcome. Meet your college representative on your college day too. Hey, Dan.
Hi. Yeah, I was just about to say that, Lucy, actually.
Sorry, David.
Sorry. Yeah, Dan, you go ahead first.
Okay. Yeah. Hi. I'm the college liaison for London College of Fashion and the Creative Computing Institute. So if you're a student of either of those, then I will be the person you go through. I'm the man inside at RMA. I've been working in universities to support postgraduate research students for 5 years. I've worked in several institutions during that time. So seen a lot and heard a lot. So yeah, that's me. I'm Dan.
Thanks, Dan. I'm David. So I predominantly work with the CSM students, research students, as well as partner college students. And just in response to Juliana's question, yes, the postgraduate research team is all 5 of us. So Jane heads it up as the manager, Emily's the coordinator, myself, Dan, and Beth Beecher, who's been emailing you for renewal, are the other 3 members of that team.
Fantastic. Thanks for rounding that out. I know I didn't do that. This is me just flagging, advertising myself to you as part of a potential relationship for your research journey. Renewal will offer you access to many of these academics and practitioners at the university, and please make use of them. Obviously, at the point of confirmation, you will have somebody from UAL join your project really and give you deep insight into how it can develop towards completion. So come to renewal events, poke around, see who is at the university who might be good as that internal assessor at the point of confirmation. And it's the same examination. Who's going to be your internal examiner when you go to Viva? So really socialize with the academics at the university, embed yourself in the research culture here so that you can be supported. Do come along to college-based research centre events, UAL Research Institute events. There's lots of public activity. And if you come along to the keynote lectures, Monday, today, Tuesday, Wednesday, you'll meet all the college research centres. So you'll find out who's working on what and what they can offer your project. I'm just gonna, I've lost the presentation, forgive me. Going back to share files. So there are some links here at the bottom, and you will have access to this PowerPoint if you want to click into them rather than just note them now. These are all ways that you can find out who's at university. So what other UL research staff beyond your supervisory team might support your project. So what else is on offer to you as a student with us? If you're at one of UAL's partner colleges, this stuff, which I'm about to cover, will be offered by your home institution. But whether at UAL or not, please know that you're a really important member of the student body, and you should expect to get appropriate support around your research projects. Don't let all the BA and MAs get the attention. I feel passionately about research students as a community, and there's a very particular offer from the universities for you. So this is my list, today's list. Every time I make this list, it's a bit different, and you'll find the list that suits you. This is some things that universities offer that could support you beyond your supervisory team and beyond academic council. If you're at UAL, let your supervisory team, if you can't find what you need, or ask the postgraduate research team or me. If you're a partner college, ask your partner, your college point of contact. Just ask. If you need things, ask, because that's the only way you're going to get the support you need. And because your projects are so particular, your needs are different from somebody else. So you might not be offered something, you might have to ask for it. Right, final slide. Who else is key in your research degree? Your friends and beloveds. This brings me to my final words. which are please maintain a life outside of PhD and outside of the university. Of course, I really hope that you will feel welcome to bring your whole self, as nurtured by your personal networks, into your research and your university relationships. But the more you maintain a life outside, I think the healthier both will be. And that is my lot. Right, we've got 20 minutes for questions. I'm happy to stay on if others have burning questions beyond the 12 o'clock official end. Please shove. I know, I'm sorry, I hope it wasn't too important. It can get a bit boring with